Hello, my name is Chris Lemaire. I'm a programmer at the American Cinematheque, and I'd like to welcome you to our virtual Q&A for Better Days with the filmmaker Derek Tsang. We're thrilled to celebrate his beautiful film, which is nominated for an Academy Award for Best International Feature Film. And our moderator for tonight is Jim Hemphill, who is a film historian and director and also longtime friend of the American Cinematheque. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Jim and welcome the filmmaker.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jim Hemphill, and it's my great pleasure to welcome the director of Better Days, Derek Tsang, here to talk about the movie. Welcome, Derek.
Hi, Jim. Hi, everyone.
So, watching that trailer has just reminded me again how fantastic the lead performance is in this movie. And I know you had worked with that actress before on Soulmate, but this is a very different film, a different kind of role. And curious, was she on your mind from the beginning, and how was the collaboration different this time around than before?
Yeah, like you said, it's our second time working together. I mean, at the very beginning when we were conceiving the film, at the back of our mind, we always knew that she is the one that we would go to in the end, but we still wanted to explore other possibilities. So we did carry on a very long casting period. We were casting for the roles for a year and a half, but at the back of our minds, we already knew that we were going to go back to her. So after like a whole year of looking around, we called her up one day. It was, would you mind coming in for like a reading? So she came in. She read it with us, and then it was clear to us that she was just the perfect actor for the role. So we ended up having her on the film as well. But yeah, like you said, I think you put it very, very perfectly. I mean, it was a very different collaboration this time with her, because with Soulmate, it was our first time working together, and with that film, we really wanted to capture her sense of character. I really wanted to showcase her own character on screen. So when we were shooting Soulmate, on set, I really encourage her to be herself. So we did some improv on set, and there's a lot of lines that was just impromptu. She just came up with the lines herself, and I really encouraged her to do that because I really wanted to capture herself on camera. But with Better Days, it's a completely different working process because Dongyu, it's completely different from Chen Nian, the character. They're from completely different background. The path that they took is completely different. So, and also because it's our second time working together, I wanted to make sure that the audience see a completely new side of her, side that they've never seen before. So, from the very get-go, I told her, like, I really want you to be a completely different you in this film. So, one of the lines that I said to her the most on set is, I don't want Zhou Dongyu. I don't want you. So, we worked very hard to change, any very minute details of her performance. So, be it the way that she walks, the way she talks, we tried everything to suppress herself in her playing this role. And it took her a while to really get into character because as I said, her and Chen Yan is completely different background, and she had a bit of difficulty at the very beginning to really understand where Chen Yan is coming from. She didn't really understand why she would bear all that and just take it all in and put that all that on her shoulder and not fight back. But I think because we shot everything in a linear process, so I think the first 10 days of shooting really helped her because it was really hard shoot because every day when she comes on set, it's she's either being pushed around, taunted on, beaten on. So I think that really helped her in terms of understanding where Tanian is coming from. So after I would say after like 10 or so of shooting, you really see her slowly getting really into the character, and then from that point on, it was really autopilot. She's just amazing, fascinating to watch her morphing into that character. And I mean, she totally exceeded our expectation of her.
Well, it's funny that you say, she was having trouble initially understanding why the character would put up with all that,
Mhm.
because I didn't think that watching the movie because of
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
performance, but now that you say it, it seems like a
Mhm.
logical question. And I'm curious, when you were doing your research for this movie, I mean, what kinds of things did you learn about? First of all, what kind of research did you do
Mhm.
to learn about this
Mhm.
whole world of teen bullying?
Mhm. Mhm. Well, we did what like the most simplest research, but the most efficient kind of research is basically just by talking to a lot of people that have been through not just bullying, but also the whole educational system in China. That's something that because I'm from Hong Kong and I was raised in Canada, so I never actually went through that whole examination system in China. So that I have to make sure that I can really get all the nuances and the details right about the educational system and the examination system in China. So we just talked to a lot of people that been through that system and been through bullying, and that really helped us out a lot. I mean, and one of the, one what like from an outsider, I've always viewed the Gaokao, this college entrance examination, as something that is kind of really high pressured, high octane, even in a way that it's kind of cruel to the kids. But after talking to a lot of kids and reading a lot of stuff online, I was actually really surprised to find that even though it's really high pressured, really high octane for these kids, but a lot of the kids that are from a more underprivileged background, they are very grateful to have this Gaokao, because one line that I constantly come across is we put that in the film, which was kind of short, but I'm not sure if all the audience caught it. Um, this one line always comes across come across online. You see people saying, "We live in a very unjust society, but this Gaokao examination is the only one fair platform that we can compete in." And that was just a very shocking thing for me to come across, and that really changed my perspective on this exam as well, because I at the beginning I was just like, oh, this is kind of inhumane, this is really high pressure, we should let the kids be a little bit more relaxed, but they actually viewed it in a completely different light from us. So it was a really good learning experience just by talking to a lot of these students and people that have been through that.
Well, and going back to the beginning, what made you, first of all, how did you come
Mhm.
across the book that it's based on? And what was it about that story that you responded to that made
Mhm.
you want to make it into a film?
Mhm. Well, I mean, it's I think it's the issue of bullying that has always captivated me. That I've always been really disturbed by it, and really wanted to make a film about bullying as my own way to kind of address the issue. Because I was really fortunate when I was growing up. I never really witnessed any serious bullying around me. I mean, there's always going to be some name callings and taunting and whatnot, but I've never really witnessed anything serious. And it wasn't really until when I mean smartphones become popular, when a social media platform like YouTube and Facebook become popular, and you see this abundance of videos that you can find online of kids doing very brutal things to each other. And that really shocked me, and that that's when it really got me started asking, why are these kids able to do that kind of stuff to each other? So from that point on, I really wanted to find a story or find an angle to tell to make a film about bullying. And I've tried we tried brainstorming a couple of ideas, but it never really worked out. And it wasn't really until my producer handed me the novel, when we just wrapped Soulmate. She handed me this novel. She's like, "Oh, this novel. It's about this girl that gets bullied in school. It's a beautiful novel. Just check it out, see whether you would like it." So with the moment that I heard it's about bullying, I was really excited already. So I got home, I read it in one night, and I called my producer. I'm like, "Oh my god, this is the story I've been waiting for." I was really excited. I'm like, "Let's do this as our next film." So that's basically how we came across the novel, and that's how the film came about.
Well, one of the things I really love about the movie, and I don't know if this is in the novel or if it's something you brought to it as it evolved, but I like how the movie kind of switches genres in a way from it's like
Mhm,
a coming of age movie and then it's sort of an
mhm,
unconventional love story and there's a crime thriller element to it, sort of police procedural almost.
mhm,
But the whole thing feels very unified. And I was
mhm,
wondering how you approached it in terms of the visual style to keep it all coherent and feel like the
mhm.
same movie.
Uh-huh. I mean, visually and stylistically, we didn't really differentiate the different parts of it. We just really tried to make the film as raw and as realistic as possible. So it was more of a narrative device that narrative. Yeah, it's more of a narrative thing that we did with like you said, the different part of it, like a coming growing up story, and then a romance, and then moving into the thriller, the police procedural. But we didn't really try to differentiate it too much. It was just really a natural, organic storytelling. First, getting the audience stepping into the shoes of Chen Nian, and then to know her, and then eventually seeing how she and Xiaobei bonding and then developing that bond, and then eventually moving into the um, her facing the very serious bullying, and then committing the crime that she did, and then trying to cover that up and finish the exam. It was a very organic narrative for us, but we knew that there was that kind of genre blending in it. But we felt that it's a effective genre bending, because it would keeps the audience engaged and curious. So that was something that we knew it was there, but we didn't really consciously make a lot of effort to kind of differentiate the different parts of it.
Were there any other filmmakers or films on your mind as sort of influences or references?
Uh, yeah, like in terms of the shooting style and the way it looked, we me and my cinematographer, we watched a lot of Adrian Arnold's film, like
Sure.
Fish Tank,
Mhm.
American Honey. That was kind of the really raw, spontaneous kind of cinematic work that we really wanted to go for. And another director that really influenced me on the making of this film, it's the Dardani brothers from um, Belgium. Yeah, the Belgium directors. I mean, their films about social issues, the social commentary of their films, and also the uh, realistic depiction of people's lives from their film really influenced me a lot on the making of this film.
Mhm. I forgot to ask at the beginning when we were talking about the acting about Jackson Yee, who I
Hmm.
believe I could be wrong, but I believe this was his feature film debut as an actor. I mean, he was known mostly as a
Right.
singer, so
Hmm.
it's a great performance for somebody who's new to
Hmm.
acting. I mean, first of
Hmm.
all, how did you decide on him, and then what kinds of conversations with him did you have about his character, and how did you kind of
Hmm.
create the environment for him to be able to give that kind of performance?
Hmm. Hmm. I mean, yeah, it's with Jackson, it's a very interesting. It was a really interesting story to how we got him involved. I mean, I met him I think at the beginning of 2017, and yeah, I met him then, and I never even heard about him, even though he was huge pop star in China, but I've never even heard about him. But my producer was like, "Oh, there's this up and coming kid that's named Jackson. Why don't you have meet with him?" I'm like, yeah, sure. So we met, and then but after the meeting, I told my producer, I'm like, I don't think he's suitable, because at that time he hasn't even. It felt like he's still a kid. He was kind of in that awkward transition from that puberty transition from teenage young teenage to young adult. So I didn't feel like he was suitable to play a 17, 18 year a rebellious kid. He didn't have that kind of young manhood in him to carry the role. So I even though I liked him a lot when we first met, but I told my producer I don't think he's suitable. So I totally put him away from my mind for a long time, and we carried on the casting, and then it wasn't really until like a year later that I accidentally come across this photo of him, and I was just shocked because he was completely grown and he's completely different from how he was when I first met him, and also the eyes, the gaze that he had in that photo really captivated me. There's this thing in his eyes, this gaze in his gaze that really spoke to me, and I was just like, oh, I told my producer, I'm like, oh my god, you gotta meet up with him again because he's completely different. So we met up with him, and we did reading with him again, and from that point on, we got really excited because we felt like, oh my god, this is Shelby, this is the Shelby that we've been trying to look for. And what's unique about Jackson is I think he is um one of the I think he's one of the only kids I've met recently that is that sensitive, that has that sense of empathy for characters in the story. Um, I think it's his upbringing really brought a lot into his acting because he started out at a very young age. He started when he was what 11 or 12, so he's been through a lot, and his experience really helped him as an artist in terms of understanding other people's suffering. He was very sensitive to who Xiaobei is and what Chen is going through. Um, and he's also very sensitive to words. I mean, that's something that helped us out a lot in terms of communicating. Sometimes when he have difficulty um, stepping into the character or understanding the emotion of the scene, he would tell me, "Oh, can you write something for me? Can you just write a paragraph or two for me in terms of describing the scene or describing the emotion that they're going through?" So we would sit down, we quickly come up something to describe the scene, to describe the character, and he would take that paragraph, disappear for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and that his sensitivity to writing, to words, really helped him in terms of understanding the character because he really loved the novel, that I think he's just really sensitive to writing.
Mhm. Shifting gears a little bit, here in America, we hear a lot about the censorship issue in China with the Chinese film industry. And
Mhm,
I'm curious with a movie like this, which, doesn't necessarily present an entirely, uh, positive, wholesome view of,
mhm, mhm.
I'm curious, what kinds of censorship issues do you have to deal with on a movie like this? And how do you appease the censors while still making the film you want to make and get across the points you're trying to make?
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, thanks for asking me that question. I mean, yeah, I mean that's censorship in China is just a rule of the game. It's something that all filmmakers from China have to abide to, and yeah, I mean, at the very beginning when we were conceiving the film, there's a lot of people that kind of just wanted to persuade us not to pursue this film because they felt like you said, it's going to be a very difficult film to get through. It's it's dealing with sensitive issue. It's going to be very difficult with the censorship. But believe it or not, we actually had a very constructive time with the censorship board. I mean, I do believe that um, the issue of bullying has really been something that everybody wanted to address, and I think everybody believed in the film, believed that it carries even though it's a bit brutal, it could be kind of critical, but it does in the end it carries a very positive language message. So I've always say that from day one. We've been very grateful for all the help that we've got. I mean, of course there was a lot of back and forth in terms of um, how the film should look in the end. But to be absolutely honest, we did feel like everybody was very helpful and really wanted to help us to put the film out there to have the audience see the film. So even though there was a lot of back and forth, but everybody's been very helpful, and to this day I was still I still have my I would still express my deepest thanks to everyone who helped out.
Well, I'm just curious. This is getting a little off topic from Better Days, but you mentioned that
Mhm.
you mentioned that you grew up in Canada, so I'm curious, what brought you
Mhm.
back to Hong Kong to make films?
Oh, I have. Well, I was there from, I was there, from elementary, high school, and then college, and then, but I've always known since, I was what, 15, 16, that I wanted to become a filmmaker, and it was something that and the Hong Kong film industry is something that really influenced me a lot as a kid, when I was watching, when I was, just really getting myself, um, um in tune with movies. So that was something that really inspired me, and really wanted to get myself a step, my get my step into. So that is something that really what drawn me back to Hong Kong is the idea of working in the Hong Kong film industry.
Mhm. Well, I know that Better Days has been phenomenally successful in China. I'm curious, I know this is kind of a hard question sometimes for a director to answer, but why do you think it struck such a nerve there and got such a huge response?
Mhm. I think, I think it's mainly because a lot of people have been through that, and they did find the film as a realistic depiction of how life could be in school for a lot of the kids in China. And people really resonated with what Chen Yan have been through, and what the other kids in the film has been through. So I think it's also because I believe, I hope that, people find that the film to be a very honest film. So that's something that they really resonated with as well, and it's just been a very, humbling experience to have your film really accepted by people from, I mean, not just in China. I mean, the film, one of the things that is really satisfying for me as a director, as a filmmaker, is how well the film traveled in different countries and cultures. But on the other hand, it's kind of just, it speaks to how prevalent this kind of issue is in different countries and cultures. So on one hand, it's very sad because, you find, oh, it's very prevalent everywhere, but on the other hand, it's just a very, it's been very exciting for me as a filmmaker, to see how well the film traveled in different countries and cultures.
Mhm. I see that we have some audience questions coming in here, so I'm
Hmm.
going to move to a few of those.
Hmm.
One of these says, "Was it a real school you were shooting at, and how did you find the
Hmm.
location?"
Yeah, it's a real school, but we shot it in the summer, so it was a summer vacation for the students. But a lot of the kids that we shot in the film are students themselves. So we hired a bunch of kids, from the area, from the city, to play, kind of, well, just really play themselves. And the students that were in the class of Chen Yan, a lot of them are uh, about to enter college, into art performance college. So a lot of these are aspiring actors themselves. So that was people that we specifically found, but all the other are just, kids that are in the city that we ask whether they'd be interested in helping out the film.
Well, we talked about the two leads, but the whole ensemble of actors is really good, especially like the girls who are the bullies, are
Hmm. Hmm.
fantastic. And I was curious about the staging of the violence in the movie because there's a lot of pretty rough violence that goes on, and
Hmm.
you're dealing with young actors, and I'm curious, like, how do you work with them? And do you have like a stunt coordinator that you're working with to try to
Hmm.
choreograph
Hmm.
that stuff, or
Hmm.
how?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We did had a stunt coordinator on, working for us. He's a great stunt coordinator from Hong Kong. But for this film, it was from the very beginning. I told my actor, especially Don't You, that, I'm sorry, but I want this film to be very realistic. So there's going to be a lot of real hit. Like, I basically told her that, I want the punches, the slaps, the kicks to be real. I want the audience to feel the pain of Chen Yan when they see you being slapped, being punched on screen. So, I want this to be a different kind of shooting where, before, with a lot of these stuff, there's always, it's always you don't really actually hit the actors. But with Better Days, I told Tony, I'm like, okay, especially for the serious bullying scene when she gets, her hair cut off, I want everything to be real. And she was very professional about it. She's like, yeah, I do, I totally understand. Because I do feel that that's how we can come across as being very authentic and very, very realistic. So she put up with me, and she bit through that. So it was so yeah, like I to this day I still give her a lot of respect for that. She took all that beating, and really she felt that it was necessary to. And then for that scene, that really serious bullying scene where she gets her hair cut off and clothes torn off, we had to find a lot of reference video online, and it was just very, very brutal thing to do, but we felt that it was necessary. And I made Donyu watch a lot of these videos as well, just so that she understand how brutal situation can get. And it was just just very heart-wrenching to watch, but it was necessary.
The next audience question we have says, Derek, when deciding on a project, how do you decide on adapting a novel versus a short story versus doing something original?
I mean, for me, it's never a consideration about whether to adapt or to write your own original story. It's always, when it comes down to it, it's always about how much you believe in the story or how much the story moves you. I think that's the most important thing. It's as a filmmaker, when you decided to pursue a project, it's always about how much love or how much you believe in the story. I think that's the single most important thing.
Mhm. The next audience question says, your cinematography is beautiful and the color tones
Thank
are
you. Thank you.
emotional. And they're wondering how you worked both in pre and post production
Mhm,
to achieve the look.
mhm. I've worked very closely with my DP on a couple of projects before already, so we're very good friends and we're very close collaborator. So at the very beginning, we actually wanted to shoot. It's a very interesting process. We tried a lot of different tests. We wanted to have a very grainy film look to make it, to have the film as raw as possible. So at the beginning we tried out a process that is kind of um, it's a funny process. We shot something on Alexa, and then we passed it on to a film processing house, so that they would first digitally print something on negative from the digital source, and then we scan that into digital. So just so that we get that film material on Steroid to have that film look. And we tried that for a lot of a few post house that can do that process. And I was really excited because I've always been a very big film buff, film guy. I've always wanted to shot in film, but because of budget or whatnot, it's never really happened. But this is some process that we believe can gain that film look. But in the end, it didn't work out. So that was kind of a shame. But I think the film look is something that we really wanted to look for, and we used everything possible to kind of have that kind of contrast, that kind of grain look that you can see from uh, 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 stories shot on film. So that was something that from the very beginning we wanted to work on. And then on post, our colorist is it's a guy from Spain who's based in China. He's a fantastic colorist, and we understand each other very well. So me, him, and my DP Xiao Yu, we just really wanted to go for this really raw and like you said, emotional color and lighting that can really convey the immediacy of the story to the audience.
Well, and while we're on this topic of visual style, I mean, when you're working with your cinematographer, how much do you plan what your shots are going to be? Are you the kind of director who likes to storyboard things, or is it more, do you more make it up on the day and respond to what the actors are doing, or
Mhm,
a little bit
mhm.
of both?
We didn't do any storyboard, but I have a very detailed shot list myself. I basically just, every day I come in with a very detailed shot list, so that always at the very beginning of each shooting day, I would walk the whole scene with my DP, basically telling her and the AD all my shot lists, all my shots. And then as we shoot, there's always going to be some addition or deletion from that. So that's just a blueprint that I like to work with when I'm shooting. And something that I wanted to add to the question before, one of the things that me and Xiao Yu, or my DP, wanted to go for, it's a lot of really tight close up. That's something that we felt like can really capture the actors' performances, and also youth. That's something that we felt like, the tight close up can really help us express the 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 energy and the spontaneity of youth on film, on screen. That's something that it's something that we decided from the very beginning.
Mhm. The next audience question is, what was your reaction to being Oscar nominated for this film, and how did the actors react?
I was just elated, very excited. I mean, we on the day of the announcement, I knew it was going to be announced, but I didn't know there was going to be a live stream. So I totally missed that. I was actually, I had a long day that day. I just finished dinner, and I was bumming out on my couch, and then all of a sudden, phone started ringing. I started receiving messages left, right, and center, just people congratulating me, and that's when it hit me. I was with my wife. We were just hugging and jumping around, very excited, and we started calling, the actors and everyone involved in the film, and we didn't even really speak. We were just screaming. We're just like, oh my god! We're just like screaming our lungs out. So it's a huge honor for me personally, and it's also a huge honor for all the uh, crew and actors involved in the film, and it's also a huge honor for Chinese speaking film. I think it's I don't want to sound narcissistic, but I am the first Hong Kong born director to be nominated in the best foreign film. So I really hope that can help and encourage a lot of young and upcoming Chinese speaking directors to really aspire to their dream.
Well, you mentioned earlier that when you were younger, thinking about becoming a filmmaker, that a lot of Hong Kong films were very important to you. I'm just curious, who were some of the Hong Kong directors that you liked when you were a kid?
Mhm. I mean, I've always, Wong Kar-wai, Wong Kar-wai, Wong Kar-wai. I mean, that he's the director that influenced me the most, I think, because I think he is the one that opened the door of cinema for me, because his film really showed me the possibility of cinema. And because when I was in my formative years, that was his most active years in the 90s. And, his films are completely different from a lot of the other Hong Kong films at that time. And his film really showed me uh, films can be shot that way. A story can be told that way. And, and then from his film, I understood that he was influenced a lot by the French New Wave, a lot of French directors, and that's when I, got started watching a lot of the film classics, or the films from the 60s, 70s, and from that point on, I started watching a lot of the American masters, the European masters. So that's how his film really opened that door for me in terms of getting myself into with the world cinema. So to this day, I would still say that he is the director that really influenced me the most.
Yeah, well, I'll pay you a compliment and say that your film reminded me of his stuff a lot, in the sense that you think something you share in common with him, I think, is an ability to really find kind of cinematic corollaries for your characters' emotions that really just suck the audience in, and really like make you relate to these people in a same way that I think his films do. So you've learned well
Thank you.
from the master.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we're running low on time, but I'm going to ask one last question that I had. Just I was a little something that surprised me when I watched the movie was the little post credits scene that came up sort of unexpectedly. You have a sort of a prologue to the movie and then a post credits scene, and I was wondering if that was something. If you could talk about what the purpose was of having that, and if it was something that was always intended, or is it something you just came across and came up with the idea for in the editing?
Yeah, that totally came across by accident. Wasn't planned as something that would be cut in half. It was intended to be an epilogue in the end. But when we were editing, I was like, oh, me and my producer were like, why? Because we had comments from our friends and colleagues after watching the first couple of cuts that they find it a little bit difficult to really get into the film at the very beginning. So we were like, okay, how can we kind of amend that? Let's play around with it. So all of a sudden we got this idea of chopping that scene in half and just putting that at the very beginning of film, and then kind of making it into a way of we're going into Chanyan's memory, how she remember her playground. So we tried that, and we got a really good response from people who watched the film, and they're like, oh, it opened up really beautifully now for me. So that came totally by accident. It wasn't really planned to be chopped into two like that.
Okay, well, it's a great movie, Derek, and I really love the movie, and I'm really happy for you that it keeps getting, as you say, it keeps getting some great response all around the world, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me about it. So
thank you, Jim. Pleasure's all mine.
Cinematheque.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, Derek. Thank you, Jim. This was such a great conversation. It's such a beautiful movie. We truly love it at the Cinematheque. So again, congratulations on your nomination, and we thank you for your time. Thank you to Jim for your amazing questions, and also to our audience for sending in all your questions.